Mr. Birchum is a recent adult animation project from the Daily Wire, part of the right-wing website / streamer's self-proclaimed efforts to win the culture war. It sees the gruff, manly Richard Birchum trying to educate today's liberal kids the right way, and locked in an eternal battle with the woke DEI warrior, Mr. Carponzi. Okay, some of you are probably a little confused right now. I recently made a video that some of you may have seen talking about this show among other things, and in the process of researching that video, learning about this show and the ways it's been received, I picked up on something far weirder than an abysmal quality level, or an ironic leopards ate my face style rejection from parts of the Daily Wire's target audience. And that's this show's queer fanbase. Look this show up on practically any online platform that supports images, and you'll see lavish fan art of Carponzi and old Dick here sucking face. Search for Birchum discussion in text, and you'll see people talking about this show like it's X-rated Heartstopper. The foursome between these four would go crazy. Mr. Birchum's gay daughter respects her dad so much. I want to draw Mr. Birchum pregnant, and that one gay teacher holding his belly, smiling at each other, and so on. Some of the accounts doing the stanning have fully committed to the bit. And at first glance, the question of what's going on here seems to have a straightforward answer. It looks like a pretty clear case of cultural hijacking. As we discussed in that last video, Mr. Birchum is intended, at least in part, to serve as a right-wing culture war beachhead. That's not conspiratorial thinking on my part, it's literally how the Daily Wire's streaming pivot was framed at its inception by Wire bigwig Ben Drybones Shapiro. But the power pieces like these have lies as much in the discussions they prompt, in their cultural aftermath, as it does in the immediate viewing experience. Think something like Sound of Freedom. What was ultimately a pretty unremarkable text ended up providing a big dumb stick for idiots to bang the groomer panic drum with. Attempts to hijack the discussions around a project like this then, perhaps through, I don't know, widespread ironic stanning, through the collective creation of an imagined gay Mr. Birchum show, and crowding out genuine discussion from the Daily Wire's audiences and allies, make as much sense as any other type of online pushback. Maybe a communal ARG like Gay Birchum even works better at disrupting culture warring than those alternatives. Given the way some of the target demo reacted to the show as is, you have to imagine at least a few potential Daily Wire Plus subscribers will have come across the show's queer facsimile in the wild, and chosen to avoid the platform as a result. Sure, they'd be doing so for the wrong reasons, but less money in the Daily Wire's pocket is no bad thing. And so a narrative begins to offer itself. It looks like people realized all this. It looks like this whole thing, Queer Mr. Birchum, was a semi-organized Zoomer psyop. There are posts and threads here and there where this kind of parallel thinking is visible. It seems that here and there people had this idea and did it, managed to spread the meme in an attempt to defuse the show's efficacy and staying power. Hence this wholly inauthentic facsimile's success, the existence of fan animations like this, to the point that you may well have clicked onto this video from one of the currently booming pieces engaging in this cultural punking. It even spread to the channel's Discord. When I suggested I would be talking about the show, the responses were less about the political Daily Wire side of things than about that fan art. Again, that's straightforward. That would make sense as a story, and parts of that are certainly accurate. But the truth is stranger, because that very romantic clip I just showed you, that's not a fan animation, that is in the show. And that's not it either. There is some amount of textual basis for the stanning and counter-readings performed by the show's queer fanbase. People were locating stereotypically queer elements in the character design from around the show's release, but as more episodes rolled out, those locations began to seem less and less shitposty. There's that above sequence, of course, in which Mr. Birchum hallucinates dancing sensually with the sensitive, effete Carponzi. This is also one of his hallucinations, so, do with that information what you will. Another one sees him imagining Thelma and Louising with his best buddy Gage. You guys remember what happened just before they drove into the canyon though, right? And in other episodes, in other hallucinations, we have moments like these.
How do you feed the real man's hunger? Go big! Go burly!
Which, guys, you must have realized how this sounds, right? Also, side note, Birchum seems to hallucinate a weird amount. I would probably get that checked out. There's the fact that when he and Carponzi first met, Birchum began the homoeroticism.
I've got my eye on you, Mr. Birchum.
Unfortunately, I'm taken.
There's also this flashback Birchum has to being fascinated with big burly guys as a young boy. There is, of course, his I love cock. Sorry, I love wood mug. Sure, it's there as a visual gag, but the joke is that Birchum loves wood. In the 5th episode, Birchum literally tries out some pickup lines on his construction site Man Crush.
So, do you volunteer here often? So you like half-inch ply for shear wall, or you're an OSB man? Okay.
Hey, don't make this a prison hog.
Look, I'm not saying that by the end of this 6-episode run, the ironic stan culture visible in all this fanart even comes close to actually being reflected in the text. I am not saying that the shoe fits. But I am saying that there isn't not a shoe. Even for a right-wing show, as interested as this one seems to be in playing it safe, preserving a veneer of mass-market palatability, it seems odd that there's so much here that can be taken in this way. Some have forwarded the idea that this was all deliberate from the get-go, that their own viewer-side attempts at hijacking were mirrored during production. Rumors suggest the animation team the Daily Wire used is largely queer, and that they snuck some of this in there. And that is possible, but only to a point, right? Maybe a sneaky guerrilla vandalism campaign on the part of external animators could explain why those fantasy sequences slay so hard, or some of the other visual elements in question, but there is no queer animator responsible for the fact that those fantasies existed in the script, nor for the existence of the other written anchors for the queer Mr. Birchum reading. Largely then, the call's coming from inside the house here. Decisions made by Adam Carolla and the Daily Wire are behind gay Mr. Birchum.
Just like Carponzi.
Initially that does seem confusing, and I get it. It's easier to imagine this as sabotage than as an own goal. Why would this be the case? How is it possible that the quest to create a figure of peak non-woke manliness, a real guy's guy, is so treacherous? It's not like heteronormative masculinity is a fickle protean bundle of contradictions at the best of times, and that even good writers routinely fail at drawing on these archetypes without creating characters that scan pretty well as queer, right? Wait, no, what the fuck am I talking about? It's exactly that. So how coherent is masculinity in Mr. Birchum? Men like Birchum should be gluttons?
While I admire the gluttony, syrup shots? Seems like a waste of stomach space. Anchors away. And by tonight, we better all away an extra 15 pounds. Hoorah!
But also need to fat shame kids.
Since when can you not fat shame? When we were kids, there was one fat kid in the class. Now they're all fat.
The make-believe military LARPing Birchum and the gang do in episode 2 is macho, but the next episode suggests funding arts instead of woodshop is the school being sissies.
Yeah, those pencil pushers needed to allocate more funds for the arts because they don't have enough lead in their pencils.
Good men are husbands, are monogamous. Isn't marriage sacred, but also wife bad?
I renounced my union membership. They force you to join, then they take your money and spend it on stuff you don't agree with. That's already my life. I'm married.
And also, getting laid is manly. Birchum's son, who the show imagines as a loser gamer in a state of arrested development, needs to rack up a body count.
PvP? I thought you could only get one of those if you had a girlfriend. And maybe you could get a girlfriend if you played a real sport. That button-mashing monkey is wasting his life.
He has over 50,000 followers.
Followers? What is he, a cult leader? Scratch that. Cult leaders actually get chicks.
But then he'll need to pretend otherwise once he's married.
And you know how many women I'd chosen to politely ignore?
Because that's how you man? Birchum became a man through yanking it.
Oh, they close spears?
Yeah, the bra section of their catalog made me a man.
Yet minutes later, his son is an adolescent loser for supposedly doing the same thing.
Ha! You tool! Your hand hasn't been on anything other than a joystick and something I won't say in front of Jeannie in years.
One episode sees the Birchums volunteering at Homes for Humanity, and the B-plot sees student aide Brad having to, quote, man up, face his fears, get a girl. But while that's happening, so is this.
Consent with your neighbor first, please. Thank you.
Not doing that. What? I barely even hold your hand.
So getting women is masculine, but being with them is not? Being a good man is also being a good dad.
Eddie's earache got worse. He might need an operation. Do full-time teachers get health coverage?
Yeah, we get it, and it sucks.
Sometimes a man has to do what he needs to do, not what he wants to do.
You're a good dad, Birch.
But Birchum's hardly a nurturing presence.
Strike three, you're out!
Ah!
I guess being a good dad is insulting your son until he learns to insult you back?
Noob. Insulting me and sweating? Finally, the son I've always wanted.
Let's take a step back. Masculinity is... Alright, no, let's just say it's a slippery thing at the best of times. And this isn't the best of times. These are not the best of writers. And so, instead of being sanded down, contradictions stick out. Signifiers lose their solidity. Does being enamored by other men's successful performances of gender denote a longing to do the same, or a longing for them? Does a mustache signify old-school manliness, or something else? In Mr. Birchum, instead of coalescing into the consistent, stable, empowering thing masculinity is often imagined as in the conservative mindset, lines blur and tropes drift. Its supposedly statuesque form is allowed to sag and denature. Gender is performed, but accidentally, as a farce. So when I say Mr. Birchum is queer media, I'm not just supporting that hijacking, the ironic appropriation of the show by queer readers, the fan art. I'm not just saying it's queer media by consensus. I'm saying that the ideas and assumptions underpinning this season of TV fit together so poorly that they practically beg the viewer to deconstruct them. I'm saying that in spite of itself, Mr. Birchum paints patriarchal masculinity as a hostile and often nonsensical thing. I'm saying that in spite of itself, there are moments within the text that apprehend and communicate the performativity of gender.
This is no time to be gay. Veterans Day is for dressing up in uniforms and marching in parades. In the manliest way possible.
I'm saying that in spite of itself, the Daily Wire's Mr. Birchum acts as queer media. It's not on purpose, it's not as a result of the choice to add a gay character to that second episode, but it is kind of there, right? And so there is, I think, a very real sense in which the show's ironic queer fanbase, with every image, every M-preg fantasy, liberates a more complex Dick Birchum from the slipshod heteronormative masculinity the structure of his show tries to impose upon him. As we've seen, to do this, to act out these gestures of liberation, is to pick up on and amplify tensions and cracks already existing there in the text. They're just hidden behind a season's worth of anti-woke strawmen and the worst jokes you've ever heard. Hey, you've made it to the end of another pillar of garbage video essay. Good job. Go get some snacks, rehydrate. I swear to God, this is the last time I'm touching Mr. Birchum, so you can all breathe a sigh of relief. And hey, I've already had quite a few new Patreon/YouTube membership signups from that last video, and guys, thanks so much. It really does make a huge difference. You're all the Carponzies to my Birchum. Huge shoutouts to all my supporters as usual. There's a cut section of this video too, you can read by signing up there yourself. Thanks in particular to Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Magath, Something Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy, and I'll see you all soon for a non-Daily Wire related video, I promise.